Amanda Knox's prosecution began the session this morning, Amanda Knox's lawyers began the session this morning by accusing the prosecution of changing the motive of the murder from sex party gone wrong to depicting Amanda as the vindictive mastermind behind the murder without enough evidence.
Beneath the glare of the media frenzy, fighting for her freedom in the final days of this murder trial, Amanda Knox arrives in court looking more relaxed. Amanda's defense team is challenging the DNA evidence presented by the prosecution. They say there isn't a single trace that puts Amanda in the room where Kircher's body was found. No fingerprints, no footprints, not a shred of evidence. They're also questioning the alleged murder weapon, a 6.5-inch kitchen knife. Investigators say victim Meredith Kircher's DNA is on the blade and Amanda's is on the handle. But the defense says the amount of Kircher's DNA found was too small to be reliable and that some of her wounds are incompatible with the size of the blade. Also being contested is Amanda's confusing statement about where she was that night. She changed her story under interrogation.
There's the statement that the defense really hasn't been able to erase, and I think that's problematic for her at this point.
Amanda and her ex-boyfriend are being charged with the murder of her roommate in what prosecutors call a drug-fueled sex revenge. Kircher was found semi-naked with her throat cut in 2007.
Amanda la squartatrice.
In court on Monday, even her ex-boyfriend's lawyer began defending her, saying she was no knife-wielding murderer, but naive and a little girl with childlike eyes, who likes the simple things in life, like birds singing.
She said wonderful things about Amanda that really actually sound like Amanda for the first time in this whole trial. So it's been great.
Amanda's defense team gets another and final day in court tomorrow when they'll discuss Amanda's character. Robin?
All right, Lama, thank you so much. But does the forensic evidence against Knox add up? Joining us now is forensic expert who says it does not. Dr. Elizabeth Johnson co-authored a petition stating that the two key pieces of evidence against Knox prove absolutely nothing, and she's in Calabasas, California this morning. Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to ask you about those two key pieces of evidence, beginning with the knife, which prosecutors say came from the boyfriend's home, and they say the handle had Amanda's DNA and that the blade had the victim's. You say this means nothing. Why?
Well, Robin, the handle of the knife is expected to have some of Amanda's DNA on it since she used those kitchen knives to prepare food in Rafaela's apartment. Now, the blade had absolutely minute traces of what appeared to be Meredith's DNA on it. It's an amount of DNA that would come from 20 or fewer human cells. But the key part of this is that there was no blood detected by chemical test methods. And that's very important because the chemical test for blood is more sensitive than the DNA test for blood. And if someone had a knife covered in blood and they tried to clean it very well, they would remove their ability to detect the DNA before they removed the ability to detect the chemical traces of blood. So this portion of DNA on the blade that is attributed to Meredith, it cannot come from blood.
So it could not have been accidentally left. I mean, you were saying there, even if you clean the knife really well, there's no chance of accidentally leaving behind some DNA evidence?
Well, you could leave behind DNA evidence, but you would still be able to detect the chemical component of blood because that test is so very sensitive. So, and that test, when the handle and the knife blade were tested with chemical methods, was negative for the presence of blood. I think that portion of DNA off of the knife blade is a result of a laboratory contamination episode.
The second piece of evidence is the metal clasp on the victim's bra, and Rafaela's DNA was discovered on that clasp. And you're saying, once again, this could be contamination? How?
Well, that bra clasp was found and collected 47 days after the murder. And it had been moved from its original location when it was documented on the crime scene video. So we don't know how many times it was moved or who handled it or how it was handled. It was a very small amount of Rafaela's DNA mixed with what is mostly Meredith's DNA, as would be expected. So there's any number of possibilities, even from the most nefarious possibilities
Right.
of how Rafaela's DNA came to be on that bra clasp, to very innocent means, such as transfer. Rafaela had been to that apartment, used the bathroom that the girls shared. People leave their DNA behind in the bathroom. Certainly you would expect it to be found on some of Amanda's clothing. Perhaps it had been transferred in the laundry when it was piled together. I mean, these DNA results could have been obtained even if no crime had occurred. It's very common to find DNA of household contacts on people's clothing.
Right. Well, we know that you have not been able to personally examine the evidence, and a friend of the Knox family has asked you to put together this review, and this is your area of expertise. Just quickly, the bottom line here, do you think there is forensic evidence to link Amanda Knox to the crime?
Absolutely not.
All right. Dr. Johnson, thank you so much.